welcome to Level with Emily Reese. This is a conversation with Swiss composer Joel Schoch. He wrote music for, we're going to talk about two games. One came out this year in 2022 called Far Changing Tides, and we'll also talk about Far Lone Sails, which came out in 2018. The music for both games, captivating, delightful. I really love it. One of my favorite things was talking to Joel about conveying water in music and the various techniques that he uses in these soundtracks, and also the fact that these are techniques that composers have been using literally for centuries to convey water in music. And I loved that about these soundtracks. I loved a lot about these soundtracks, and it was great to speak with him. Now, if you want to hear the music, I could not encourage you more than I possibly can through this video to please go buy it. It's worth it. Both soundtracks are spectacular. But also, if you want to hear samples mixed in with our conversation, specifically pointing to actual musical events, please listen to the audio version of the podcast. The audio version is where we put in music samples. We don't put music samples in of this video version. Join us on Discord too. Link is in the show notes. It's free, although there are patron-only spots in there. If you can become a patron, that would be great. Would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, you can interact with us on Discord, Twitter. Sometimes I'm streaming on Twitch, whether I'm editing the show. I've done that on Twitch. Otherwise, I'm gaming lately, like Fall Guys. I haven't done Elden Ring in a while. Maybe some Destiny, also Returnal. But in any event, check us out. You'll find us online, and would love to hear from you. In any event, here is Joel Schoch talking about Far Changing Tides and Far Lone Sails.
I am Joel, and I make music for video games and theater and installation. Basically, always I make music for interactive media.
Oh, cool. Okay. And today we're going to talk about the two Far games, Far Lone Sails and Far Changing Tides. And Lone Sails came out in, what, 20? When did that come out? 18? 18. Yeah,
it had different dates of release, because firstly it was PC, and then a year later it was PlayStation and Xbox. So it was,
Yeah. So describe these games a little, if you would, before we start talking about them. Just kind of the concept, what they're like, and then we'll get to it.
So those are 2.5D games. That means the whole scenery is made in 3D, but you travel from left to right, like jump and run, and it's about the character and a ship, or in the first game, like a vehicle called Locomotive, and you are traveling through a vast land. Yeah. And encounter different things.
Puzzle elements to it in some way, and you kind of form a relationship with the ship over time, right? Because you're fixing it up as you go, and and you said the ship is called, in the first game, is Locomotive, and that's the developer, right? So how did you get connected with the developer Locomotive?
I got to meet Don Schmocker, who is the visual lead, while studying at the Zurich University of the Arts. So firstly, he approached me for his bachelor project who was Lone Sails in a small version. So I'm kind of on board even before the rest of the crew.
Sure. Okay. So were you friends, or he just knew of your work at the university?
Our head of department had the brilliant idea. I was studying composition for film and theater there at Zurich University of the Arts, and he had the brilliant idea to every other Wednesday invite people of different fields into our place to kind of have these meetings where they could come up with their ideas and tell us about their projects, and we would form groups and we would make music for them. So dance choreographers would come in, or film students, animators, and also the game design department. And there we without knowing each other, we just formed a group and hoped for the best. And I would say it worked out quite well for us.
Yeah. So I would say so. So there's, this ship component, you're traveling across this land in this ship, And so you scored both games. The newest one came out this year in 2022, Changing Tides. And talk to me about the theme of kind of traveling on the water musically. Like, what were some of your thoughts about that as you started the music?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to compare it with the first one, the vehicle was becoming way bigger, and traveling in water is a bit more. It's like if you pull the brakes on a ship, it will take for 200 meters until the ship is actually stopping. So there was this element of not being able to react that fast, and more the waves and the music and how heavy it felt and how big the world felt. That were some thoughts in my mind when I started to make the music for Changing Tides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I heard a lot of what we call in the music business hemiola, right? Where you're doing a lot of 2 against 3, like, or 4 against 3, or 6 and 3, and I felt like that was kind of a theme through both scores. Was that conscious of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. In the first one, it was the audio, the way from telling with audio that there were a lot of small wheels that are having a different tempo to them, but they all combined are making the one thing, which is traveling. Yes. And inside, if you watch closely, you will find something who's going like this and the other one who's going like that, but they're both connected. And that's a bit the same with the music. Different meters who have a big solid ground behind them.
Yeah, things that are disparate but that combine into something consonant, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that too, a lot of the music really is very beautifully consonant, even if you're using maybe cluster chords or something like that. So tell me about that too.
Actually, when it comes to a harmonic approach for it, it's a bit just the things that feel right for me. Even though I have a lot of music theory in the background, it's just improvising on the piano. And if I find the sound to be appealing or to working in this field, I would take it. It's not that much overthought, to be honest, in the beginning. Okay. And if I would have to say where the inspiration comes from, I would say it's coming from Impressionism. It's coming from Ravel music and Debussy, where you could always find dense chords that have a bit, or even more, surely, this appealing feeling to them.
Yeah, and there are many examples of tracks in certainly in Changing Tides where you kind of do have these block chords that just shift, but it's just chord, and that's really effective in terms of, kind of musically giving us this feeling of motion in a way, right?
but also heavy motion and slow motion and being
yeah, very much so.
If that translated itself through music, I'm very happy.
Yeah, very much. Oh, yeah, totally. And so let's talk just specifically about Loan Sales for a few minutes. The first game from 18, and that very first track is so beautiful. And then just kind of out of nowhere, there's this beautiful soprano saxophone. Now, was that live?
Everything you hear in both the soundtracks is live.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Every instrument you hear is recorded live. There's no samples. No.
So who played for you? What? Yeah.
Friends, mostly friends, or became friends through the process. No, in the first game, I think there were 6 different musicians. Like all the instruments, I would say the reeds or the main melodies, I'm not a saxophone player, they recorded, especially also the overdubs for the violin and cello. And all the rest I try to record myself. All the smart bits where you can't hear, or you're not necessarily hear whether it's a top musician holding the flute or not.
So what instruments do you play?
I do play everything with keys, and I do play. I do record all the percussion stuff and a lot of like vibraphone, all those things where you can have an easy access to play. And then also I started for Changing Tides. I started to play flute and bass clarinet, but really in a really bad way. I would record 30 times the same things, 30 takes, thank you very much. And 27 would be complete shit. And then the one or two who were okay, I used. Yeah. It's also a bit my way of working. It's just trying out and then hoping for the best.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's trumpet too, which really surprised me how it was recorded so bare in a way. You know, it was just very, it's not like it was a trumpet with a ton of reverb added or anything. It was just this beautiful little trumpet solo in a couple of spots that was really beautiful.
Mainly the reason for it was that I recorded everything in my bedroom. So it was not in a big studio, but just at my home, which is one of the best tips I can give to always record in a surrounding where you feel comfortable. And if it's possible, make also the musician feel comfortable in the surrounding, because you will always hear it in the recording. If you're stressed in a big studio where every minute costs like $50, I don't see myself being able to stand up and come up with a good result. I have some friends of mine who studied who are really good in those surroundings. When pressure is high, they are the best. When pressure is high, I am the worst.
It's good to know this about yourself, right?
Yeah. Big process.
Yeah. There's a track called Sundown. Are you familiar with your track names if I start shouting them out like that? Okay, good. Yeah. Good. You never know. Some composers don't even name their own tracks, so it's hard to say. But Sundown, there's a beautiful instrument at the beginning. What instrument is that?
It's the old ukulele of my father.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's just really softly played, and I think the strings over being played after 40 years, they're super soft and torn off, so it doesn't sound that much like Hawaiian ukulele anymore.
Sure. Interesting. Okay, yeah, that one kind of stumped me a little bit. I was like, what exactly is that? But go ahead.
That's something I'm after all the time. I like it if you can take the sound as a sound and not directly know what it is. Mm-hmm. Also, combination of instruments who wouldn't perform normally in an orchestra or in a small group. I like to combine them and find a sound that I think it helps a lot the immersion of the game. If you're not thinking about whether do I hear a trumpet or a saxophone here, it's just music, and then you dive in more, or hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, God, what was it that you just said that made me think of a whole other... Let me look at my list here. Oh, yeah, because there's a really cool thing you do in Changing Tides. I guess it sounds like we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the two. I hope that's okay.
Fine for me.
With Changing Tides, there are a couple of spots where you do this really beautiful thing with cello and violin where they're playing in unison. And, so you've got sort of the upper range of the cello and the lower range of the violin. And I love how their timbres combine there. It's really lovely. Talk about that.
It's hard to talk about it. It's a color. It's a color. Yeah, it's one color on the palette that can work sometimes. And also, usually when that just comes into my mind when I make a session, I record 10 cues or 12 or something like that, and I will use 7 to 8 in the end. So also these combinations, it's a thing of trying out different combinations, and the one that works in the end, because I'm not yet as good to be able to in the beginning to have this combination of sounds, and I will do it exactly that way and it will work. because there's so many things along the way that can be different. Maybe the instruments, maybe the temperature, maybe the player, how he feels that day. So in the end, it's good to have one or two or three possibilities to choose from. And I think this combination was also one of the combinations I could choose from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really lovely. And at one point they're playing, it sounds like almost with no vibrato, which is also kind of a really interesting choice. And it's almost a sadder, you know, not sad like bad, but sad like melancholy.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, string instruments, there's a reason why they're used for all different things that you can hear, because they're so super versatile when it comes to transporting stuff. Also, as a percussion instruments, they're perfect. I used a lot of violin drumming in circling from Changing Tides.
So like tapping the body and stuff.
Tapping the body, yeah, or the muted strings, or like playing like a guitar but with muted strings. All the stuff that a guy can do that can't actually play the violin, but has a violin in his hands, and then he has to come up. What can I do with this thing? And then.
No, I love that. And circling, that's from that's Lone Sails, right?
No, that's
that's Changing Tides. Yep.
Yeah,
I see now. I've got them separated in my list here.
Oh, good.
So what were the kind of the differences as you approached Changing Tides? Because I know that the kind of the concept for the world itself was different. So how did you kind of think of it musically?
Before I started with Changing Tides, I was thinking about what has to be the same that it can work out for me. And then I found out that the process has to stay the same. As we talked before, certain things you learn about yourself that are working. So I wanted to keep the process with those sessions at my place, but I wanted to come up with a whole other musical world. And I think a lot of it came from the instrumentation also, where different and a lot more instruments were used for Changing Tides rather than in Lone Sails.
Okay. I heard a lot more clarinet in Changing Tides.
Yeah, clarinet, and also I would say
show me.
This thing here was used in a lot of tracks that we're building up again.
What is that? Is that a?
It's an organ.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
A little.
And I recorded it. It used to be on not the cellar. What's on top of a house?
Attic.
Yeah, it used to be on the attic of a guy, and he had no use for it anymore because the original builder died. He did this after retirement for like 15 years. He just built this wooden organ.
Wow.
And it's a bit improvised, all the stuff, but you can see there's in the end, it will have 800 wooden pipes in this thing. And I had the possibility to get this instrument with a friend of mine who is also here. Okay. And we got it, and I recorded a lot of organ also for Changing Tides.
Oh, interesting.
I thought it would be heavy, and it's like the ship.
Wow, what a I mean, that's a find. Like, that's literally a one of a kind instrument. Yeah. What a neat thing.
It's a neat thing, but it's also super stressing because it was a guy that built it, had in the beginning no clue how to build a wooden organ, and you can find it on every corner where stuff is not working or there's air coming out of the instrument. So it's a love-hate relationship that we have.
Amazing. I love it. There was one track, I'm looking here on my list here, that seemed like it was all clarinets. Turn?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm such a sucker I'm a sucker for all kinds of instruments, but clarinet is one of them. So when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. It's so beautiful because, some people might not know, clarinet has quite a robust family. There's bass clarinet all the way up to little tiny sopranino clarinets. So there's just this lovely choir you can create from them. Tell me about it.
I think that the nice sound of it was a big part of it played actually the clarinet player who showed up to the session with a B clarinet, and he also brought a new A clarinet that he bought, which is only half tone separate. They are nearly the same instruments, but sound completely different. Yeah. He was getting more comfortable with Eastern Europe music, with Balkan, like folk from Serbia, Bosnia, and so on. And he brought this instrument, and that made this track work actually, because one voice would be the normal B clarinet, and one voice would be the A clarinet, and I think one voice would be the bass clarinet. So you had three members of a family performing together, and you would not have the issue of phasing like when you use the exact same instrument for two different. So that was a shout out to the clarinet guy.
The clarinet guy. You didn't play bass clarinet on that track, huh?
No. It is only short notes and no way.
Oh, it was very, very beautiful. Again,
and also to be told about. Sorry that I interrupt you.
Not at all.
For turn to be told, I didn't thought that it would be a clarinet only track. I just recorded with him as a bass for something that I would make over it, and I had already in mind what it could be. But in the end, I was listening to the session. I thought there's nothing missing in my ears, so I kept it. Oh. And I think those are also really important decisions that you make along the way.
Yes, I was just going to say that is wisdom, because it's so enticing, or I don't know why I'm at a loss for the word, but to add more, just to, it's hard to know when to say when, right?
Yeah, and it's hard for me as well. I'm not often. I record too much or put too much in a track.
Interesting. I never thought that once through either of these tracks.
Oh, thank you very much. That's really nice. I thought it all the time.
Oh God, no. Yeah, no. It's and that was another theme I felt of your music, was the openness, and the music spatially also imitated the visuals, which is not an easy thing to do. So, you had all these ways of adding space into the music, whether it was by leaving some silence here and there, or just by opening up the sonic spread from low to high, or just all these different ways of creating this vast space, which I really, really appreciated.
I mean, the game is beautiful, and the music has also it's really important that the music also makes space for the picture, because it's two things performing with each other. And that's the main thought behind this. And another thought is, I do like soundtrack music where when I listen to it, I like to sing over it. So like when you listen to it, you feel like, oh, I could sing over it. And there would still be space for one voice.
Yes.
And sometimes it's too dense and there's a lot going on, or it's not possible. But in the parts where it's about leaving out space, I try to listen to it and then sing over it. And when it still feels like it's not too much, it feels fine.
And there were tracks with just a little voice in them, just ever so slightly, right? Just every once in a while. Now, was that you singing, or did you have other people?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, that was a really nice.
Yeah,
nice
I wanted to try out those kind of overtone things, like with and I recorded a lot of different voices, and then you would not hear the overtones anymore. But in the combination of those 6 voices, it would be like like this. I cannot describe it. It's like you hear 4 notes, but at the same time they're still my English words.
Well, it's like when the sound waves kind of hit against each other. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And the overtones hit against each other. It feels like like when it's really really hot and you look at the street, and over the street it's forming some kind of fata morgana. You don't know anymore what it is, and this is what those voices were making.
Oh, cool. Very cool. One of my absolute favorite tracks, and that's saying something. One of my absolute favorite tracks is Rise from Changing Tides. And I love, again, its unison melody lines. I loved that. And the bass is rising, like the name of the track, right? So the bass is doing this upward motion, and there's like this kind of 12/8 triplet thing happening where you're kind of rocking back and forth, and there might even be electric guitar in there. I'm not even sure, but I loved that track, and I would love to hear your thoughts about it.
I think it took me so many hours to mix this track because I wanted it to become good, and after a time I hated it, and I put so much time into not the composition. I think it was quite fast, but afterwards all the elements and to mix it and the sound of the strings, I was never happy. So it's for me, when I think about it, I learned a lot on this. Let's put it that way. I learned a lot on Rise, and in the end, I thought it was okay, but I put so many hours into. That's the first thought about Rise. Musically, exactly, it's all the things that you mentioned. It's the bass that is rising. It's it is an electric guitar.
Okay. Eventually,
an electric guitar that comes like 3-4 times when you're underwater. It's just. One step away from an acoustic sound, but it's an electrical sound that's not made up by me. That was used a lot of times before, and the rise up. I liked having a melody that comes like 4 or 5 times in the game, more or less. One of the main themes is also in Rise, and I think when I composed, it was originally it was in Rise. So
okay.
That's kind of for this melody, for this theme, it was the bone structure of the rest.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so, oh wow, yeah, that makes me curious then. How? So was it one of the first compositions you wrote for Changing Tides?
Yeah, I would say there were. Yeah, I think it was the third.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. The first one was were some parts of circling, just the rhythmical parts, and the second one was the melody and chords for when you first time use the ship. Those were the first one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Another one I love is Travel. This one has like harp in it. I mean, real harp, I assume, then, since you said everything was real. Who do you know that owns a harp?
Right.
Oh, you have a harp? Amazing.
Yeah, let me show you what kind of harp it is.
Okay, I want to see,
This is the big mess that I'm working in.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. No, that's...
And this is the harp.
Look at that.
But it was $50. It's from Peru or a Bolivian harp, I guess, and someone didn't use it anymore. And you have to tune it here, but it would always detune. That's a beautiful thing about recording. You have to set it up once, and then you record it, and afterwards, a week after, the instrument will not be usable anymore. It's not a concert instrument. So
wow.
$50 harp.
Amazing, because it literally sounds like a concert harp, you know what I mean? And I mean, that's a testament to your ability to record it so well too.
Yeah, and I wanted it to be or in the end it felt for me like someone who's really able to play a good harp, but it was me, but 5 layers. I record like dun, 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 and in the end combined, it should sound like someone who is able to play the harp in a really posh way.
Oh, good.
But I also I think the hard part of travel is one of my favorites of the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I loved too the combination with I sounded like marimba or something like that, or and other guitars and strings, and again just another perfect example of the motion that's in this soundtrack. There's just a lot of movement in that track. Yeah, and vibes too. You said something about vibes early in our conversation, and do you have a set of vibes there too, vibraphone?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my gosh, amazing!
It used to belong to a choir that my parents were singing in, and it was sitting somewhere, also in the attic. I don't know.
You have stepped on my cat. I didn't realize she was right here.
No.
Hang on, let me just make sure.
Sorry, Katie. Yeah, sure.
She never comes in here, so I'm just surprised that she's.
I love cats. Maybe she wanted to say hello. I do.
She does. Come here, Kitty. Are you stuck? I think she's stuck.
Oh, hello there.
I think she's stuck and she wants out and she can't.
Yeah, let her out.
I'll fix all this. She's like stuck. I think she got out. Okay, I'll cut all that.
Yeah, but you let her out, no problem. I have time.
Yeah. She figured it out.
Okay.
She must want something. I'll figure it out later. She can wait.
Food.
She must,
always
even
food.
Though it's always food, even though she's doesn't need that for a few days. She'd be fine. Sorry about that. So you found this harp in
good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that makes me curious because it sounds like your parents are musicians too. So talk to me a little bit about how your musical journey started when you were a young boy, if you would.
My parents are teacher. My aunts and uncles are teacher. My grandparents are teacher, and my sisters are also teacher. I was in a teacher family where music plays a role. We were singing and playing music, but there are no professional musicians in my family.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was also important because I started to play the classical piano when I was 7. And I played it for 3 years and I hated it because my teacher would always tell me that my fingers wouldn't be stiff enough. They would always crack and break here. And my technique was not suitable playing classical piano at all. And I wasn't very good at reading notes and I didn't like it because I wasn't good, or maybe, you never know which way around it goes, whether you're good at it or you like it or what comes first, but a combination of the two, I wasn't good. And I thought of stop making music. And then I changed to a piano teacher who would only do improvisation with me. So no reading notes, no technique, only 2 grand pianos to each other. He would play, I would play something. Wow. And he would play me some like old jazz vinyls from Oscar Peterson or Keith Jarrett and all these guys. And then I caught a bit more fire to say the least. Yeah. And then I was always composing, I guess, because I couldn't read notes. I thought it takes too long, but I want to play. I'm not that patient. I have a sort of impatience.
Wow. So those pianists you named are jazz pianists for mostly. Yeah. I mean, I know Keith Jarrett kind of walked both lines, rest in peace, but Oscar Peterson is one of my all-time favorites. So is Keith Jarrett, honestly. I love them both very much. I've had a lot of jazz in my life as well. So did you pursue listening to more jazz? Is that also a part of your kind of repertoire as it is?
Yeah, when I was studying, we were 6 or 7 people in the class, and from all of them, I was the jazz guy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I wouldn't consider myself anymore. But I know a lot more about jazz and jazz history than I know about classical.
Oh,
music.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. I'm coming more from the jazz.
Okay.
I think these polyrhythmic things are also. You can got them up from you can take them up from classical music, but a lot of it also from I'm a big fan of Tigran Hamasyan, an Armenian jazz pianist who is amazing, and some other musicians that I still follow.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. So then when you went to university, you went knowing that you wanted to study music.
I did compose a musical in the final year of high school, and and then I would have been the guy who writes the play, and another girl was in charge of making the music, but then she had like I don't know, how is it called, like the musician's sickness where you
dystonia maybe?
Yeah, maybe something like that. And she couldn't write music, and then I started making music for this musical, and I had so much fun. I was really bad at it. It was the first time really doing something, but it was so much fun that I thought I wanted to study music for film.
Okay. Yeah. And so then you went to an art school, you said, right?
Yeah. Firstly, I went 1 year to Germany for pre-college because I didn't know the computer technique behind recording and stuff like that. I was complete noob. And then I started studying in the Netherlands for 1 year, the bachelor's in film music. And then the school changed in Switzerland to a new study, film music, composition for film, theater, and media. And then I applied there, and I got back to Switzerland and made my bachelor's and master's there.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Now, do you game?
Yeah, I do.
What kinds of games do you like to play?
As I like to play soccer, I have a tradition in those soccer games, like from childhood. But besides that, I also do just love to play those artistic, nice indie games. Yeah. Like Summer Roast Free is the music to Summer Roast Free was one of the main reasons why I thought I also want to make game music specifically. Okay. I even wrote my master's thesis about the music of Summer Roast 3. I love it. It's smashing. It's absolutely amazing. And like Inside, I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah.
For sure, Journey and Apsu I enjoyed. Those kind of single player games that doesn't take ages to end and are just a nice something artistic behind them.
No Elden Ring for you, no hundreds of hours.
I did try it, and I failed big time. I knew that I would fail.
Well, yeah.
As everyone did, but I failed big time, and at the end, I don't have, as I told before, I am not the most patient human being in this world. I don't think it's a match to play this game.
No, that's true. It's not.
But I see that it's beautiful and amazing, and the concept behind it. I mean, I think I'm lacking experience in like 20 other games before I should start with this one. Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that answer, very much. So let's get back to some of the music for these games. Changing Tides, there's a really neat track called Round. And I only listened to it once, so I didn't pick up that there's actually a round, but there's definitely a lot of call and response. So tell me a little bit about that track. It's really neat.
I think the concept behind this is that it is it's you can cut that out afterwards.
Okay.
Now there's like a Lego brick in the beginning and it's just collecting all the instruments from the first and second game and put them on both. It's like during the process, the two tonalities and the two musical fields of both the games were collected in rounds. Like it made this round and collected 2 or 3 instruments, and like this. That was the idea behind it. It's a bit repeating itself, but it's a build up. Like the structures.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that you combine both games. I did not pick up on that. Now I'm excited to listen to it again. Very, very cool. Yeah, there's another when we were talking earlier about the cello and the violin being in unison, which is a lovely sound. There's a track where you do put them in octaves, so the cello is, a little bit more in his or her home range, as is the violin, and that's really lovely. That's a track called Open Sea. That I really loved, this idea that these instruments are together, again. So tell me a little bit about that track, if you would.
From the arrangement, Open Sea was special in a way that it was nearly strings only. Also, like the other track you mentioned, it's not 20 different instruments combined. And it was a bit a bold approach because I recorded everything in my bedroom in an overdub situation, so not in a big hall and beautiful. Right. And to mix it and to get where I wanted it to be, it was also quite hard, to be honest. But I thought that it was just best to leave it a bit open, as it's called Open Sea, and you drive into the open sea. And I don't know, I like that this melody only showed up there. It's a piece that stands completely for itself, for one feeling, and not for the whole series. It was just this one feeling of driving into the open sea.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this combination, I think, in octaves, it's I think it's used quite often also in that sense. But for me, in this moment, the deep thing would be the ship, and the high thing would be the character, and they both together drive into the open sea.
Oh, okay. I wondered if you had instruments that symbolized the character and the ship and things along those lines.
Yeah, I think in my thoughts, I do make some thoughts sometimes to come up with a decision, but I would never say that it's kind of a leitmotif thing where I don't do things that feel good, because I have this one rule that this instrument is for this character. That's why I don't do this here. I think that way I would still work on the soundtrack. I don't think it's good to be working too hard on small things for too long period of time, because it makes you unhappy, and I don't know whether the small bits that you're working on for too long will actually get better.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. You mentioned too that you really enjoy composing for interactive media. So talk a little bit about what that is like for you and what you do enjoy about it.
I do like that the music has to react to stuff. So besides composing, I do love come up with how the music works in the game. Like there's two parts of making music for a game. Usually, or in big productions, there are two different guys who are doing this, but as it's super small and indie, everything is combined into one person. And and one is writing music, the other one is coming up with how the music reacts in the game. And in-game, music can react to every physical value that there is in games. So the possibilities, I'm scratching at this surface of what is possible for music inside of a game. It can react on the steps you take. It can react on wind. It can react on how the ship is in which shape the ship is. It can react on everything, and that's what I just love. Come up with kind of in the mind, coming up with three situations where when this is like that, this comes there, and this sound is coming. Those kind of combinations I could spend days and days with, and that's why I think I like the interaction thing. And making music for plays is, I think it is the yin and yang thing for me personally, because I work alone a lot of time for the computer for the games, and I do love it. But as you can hear, I can also talk like a waterfall, and it's important to have plays where you work with people and on stage as to equalize my life a bit, to also have social context. And that's also why I do a lot of the interaction thing of plays.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Do you think you would have had like this love for music in theater without the experience that you had in high school? I mean, that's so interesting that you kind of got thrust into that opportunity in high school and it's kind of continued.
I was acting in school theaters. I liked to play I liked to play as a media before, and then I got away a bit of it. And it's just also a reality in Switzerland that there are just a lot of plays, and that have composers. It's just a market where you can work and earn a bit of money in Switzerland, and I do like it. But it's also it came by opportunity also. I have actually most of my jobs I get from other composers who take me on board. They just like I'm making this play. I don't want to make it alone. Let's do it together. Be on stage, and that's the way I work on those projects. Usually as a co-composer.
Interesting. Okay. So back to, games. Did you then do the implementation in the FAR games?
I did do the whole thing in FMOD, which is a visual program where you can design how the implementation is working. I never touched one line of code. I'm not able to code. So from this. From the ideas and the way it was built up in FMOD Studio over to Unity, this transformation that it worked smoothly. There was also Fabio Baumgartner who works there. But the ideas on how the music behaves, on when it changes and how it reacts, are also from me. I think it's really important to if you make music for games, you have to know how music works in games, because otherwise you will lose a lot of time that the implementation guy tells the composer, no, there has to be 1 more second of this, or it has to be perfect aligned, or stuff like that. Yeah.
And you can, I think, miss opportunities in the music you make too, because you can,
And it is a huge inspiration for the music itself as well. Like if you have an idea in FMOD how the music could react on the game, it will give you ideas on which instruments to take or what kind of music to make. So, and if one of those two things stress me, or I feel like I cannot go forward a step, I just go to the other one and then see whether there is something to be improved.
Did you do any of the sound design?
For the first game, I would say I recorded half of the sound design.
Okay.
And for the second one, it was only Fabio who did the sound design. We just made 2 days of recording also at my place, where the two of us together recorded a lot of things like paddles in the bathtub and stuff like that for the second game. But then we had just a huge library, and I gave it to him, and the final products, he took those audio files and made the sound design.
Okay. Very
He's a nice guy. You can also ask him. He has
I should. Yeah.
A beautiful, deep voice that is perfect. And he talks slower, but way more precise than I do.
I'll ask you for his contact info when we're done. Oh, man. I mean, just the music, I really did just... so much enjoy. There's another thing that I'm kind of a sucker for is like bell sounds. So if you have like glockenspiel or chimes or even vibes, things like that. And even if you use, sometimes piano can kind of obviously give that impression, and it does really well in a track called Half. Is that, I can't really, my eyes are kind of bad. So is that the name of the track? Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't read the L and the F there. So yeah, tell me about that track, because I love how the piano kind of tinkles up in the upper register there toward the,
Should I show you how I made it?
Oh, if you like, yeah, sure.
I can go to the piano where from my friend. I don't think he's here because he must be there. Oh, he's using towels. And it's hard to show.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I think it's quite a common effect, but it's if you play the note like that, it's normal. But in half, it was just. It was muted with the fingers. Can you see?
Yep.
And what you hear is exactly that. And then the position of your finger decides on what kind of overtone you get, and that makes it super bell-like. That's what you said about the quality of a piano as being a bell. And having an open piano is quite important to fiddle around, to go through the strings, to also mute them and become those bell sounds. That's just rich, as it is my main instruments, and I used to learn it. It's a rich opportunity. For sounds and textures.
Very effective in that track. Yes, indeed. And then warmth in the cold, and I felt like, I wonder what I would have thought if it hadn't been titled that, but when I heard it, I was like, this music is very warm sounding. So, and then as I wrote that down, I was like, oh, maybe I was just kind of influenced by the title, but I don't know. Tell me, it's such a beautiful, really just warm, kind of feels like a warm blanket on a cool evening, you know?
What I like most about it is that it has an odd meter. It's interchange between 7/4 and 5, I guess. I'm not sure anymore. But it feels so natural. I hate it when like complex musical ideas sound complex.
Yeah.
It's just music for the sake of complexity is not something that I search, or that also not search when I listen to music. Just that's very complex, but it doesn't touch me at all. So when I come up with those bit more complex musical ideas, I'm super strongly have this urge that it sounds natural or organic, that it doesn't feel like a complex hic that you made in there. It's just to be posh.
Yeah.
And to why it feels warmth.
Yeah.
Would have to need to re-listen to it to
I know.
To know what kind of decisions were made there, to be honest.
I know. I might have to re-listen to it too. But yeah, I just loved it.
But the title of the cues were given to them in the end. So it was not that I wrote down, now I will make music that is warmth in the cold. It was not made this way around. So it was first the music, and then I maybe I listened to it as you did, and I thought, this could be that.
Yes. I wouldn't be surprised. So, Joel, what kind of projects are you working on now? Are there things that you can talk about that we can look forward to in the future?
No, there's not much to right now. Right now, I'm in a phase where I do a lot of plays in Switzerland until the end of this year. But then maybe afterwards, we will see. I think there will be coming something.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, what is there more you want to say about writing the music for Lone Sails or Changing Tides?
I think I got a beautiful possibility to work on the same level with people. There was never a boss and employee situation. We would always talk as equals with each other, and they trust me. I think those two things if you find them, you will be able to make nice stuff.
Yeah. Well, they should trust you. Your music is absolutely beautiful, and it was so wonderful to spend time listening. Really dedicated listening to it. So enjoyable. And I'm just really grateful that you took time to speak with me today. So thank you so much, Joel.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.